Hello and welcome back to In the Corner. I'm Cash. Today we are here with episode 68, and we've got a good amount of stuff to talk about. The November 22nd, we know that's the date now. Riyadh season supercard has just been announced. Last episode we talked about the fights that are being added to it. There's been more since we've talked about that. Bam versus Puma is going to be on that. We'll run through that whole thing. We had Jack Catterall beating Harlem Eubank in a really bad fight this weekend that ended early with a brutal cut. Uh, Dmitry Bivol, Artur Beterbiev 3 is looking like it's headed to Russia, and there's some drama going on there. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about the UFC White House event that's being talked about and who wants to get on that. Jake Paul updates with his ranking status and who he wants next. Ricky Hatton is coming back to boxing. So much to talk about. Let's get into it. Kicking off, we're going to talk about this new Saudi card. So right after the last episode came out, it was announced that not announced, but reported that Jesse Bam Rodriguez and Fernando Puma Martinez were in negotiations for a unification fight on this big Saudi card in November. And since then, it has now been announced. So November 22nd at the A&B Arena, it's going to be Ring 4, which I'm still really confused about how this Ring Magazine cards work, which one is a ring card, which one isn't. At first, we were told if it's outside of Saudi Arabia, all those events will be classified as Ring Magazine cards. And then inside Saudi Arabia, all of those will just be Riyadh season Sella cards. And you also have TKO in the mix. And, I mean, obviously, it's made sense so far this year when they started doing the Ring Magazine cards. The first one was Eubank Ben. Then we had the Times Square one. That was 1 and 2. And then we had Canelo vs. Skull, Riyadh season. Coming up this weekend, Edgar Berlanga, Hamza Shiraz, Shakur Zapata. That is Ring Magazine 3. It's in New York. Then the next card after that will be Itama versus White, Riyadh season. And then Canelo Crawford is outside of Saudi Arabia. It's in Las Vegas, but that's a TKO thing, so it's not necessarily a Ring Magazine card. So that's why it's not Ring 4. But then Eubank Ben 2 apparently is going to be a Riyadh season event, even though that's in London. And then the one after that is going to be this one with Benavidez-Yarde, Haney-Norman, and that's going to be in Saudi Arabia, and that's going to be a Ring Magazine event. So it's really confusing. It doesn't really matter which one is which. It's just weird to me that they're trying to brand it as Ring 1, Ring 2, Ring 3, Ring 4 without it doesn't make any sense what's a ring card and what isn't. Regardless, another card of the year. David Benavidez versus Anthony Yarde is going to headline. That's interesting. That's the main event choice, as I do think Devin Haney is a bigger name maybe than David Benavidez. However, I don't think he has as many fans as Benavidez does. With Haney has a lot of haters. And I think that Haney-Norman is the bigger and better fight, but it doesn't really matter. Benavidez will defend his WBC and I'm assuming WBA regular light heavyweight titles against Anthony Yarde. It's really the only lopsided fight on the card. Anthony Yarde is still maybe top 5, top 6 in the division, but Benavidez is just so clearly above him. And then you have Devin Haney, Brian Norman Jr. in the co-main event, which is a fantastic welterweight matchup. A little bit closer, and I think people are looking at it a little bit closer than it is, thinking that Norman's got the upper hand. I don't. I think that Haney is going to beat him. I just think that he's a more elite boxer. But Brian Norman Jr. does have that power, and he is really, really good. And he has the welterweight championship. He's the champion. So that's a great fight. Abdullah Mason, Sean Noakes, or Sam Noakes. I was getting confused. We talked about that. That's a really, really good fight. Two guys stepping up to world level. Mason's getting his world title shot way sooner than I thought he was going to. He was fighting in 8-rounders just a couple of months ago. Now he's fighting for a title. It's crazy how quickly this has come about for him. And Sam Noakes has been waiting on this for a while, and I think it's a fantastic matchup between those two. And then Jesse Rodriguez versus Fernando Martinez, which will likely end up being for the WBC, WBC, WBA, 100% those two belts, and WBO should Bam beat Fumalele Kafu. I guess the WBC may not be on there as well in case Bam loses, but I think we all knew Bam is likely going to beat Kafu, but you never want to say, I mean, this is crazy. I don't think we've ever seen, we may have, but I don't know if we've ever really seen a champion have two different unification matchups booked, assuming he gets through the first one. And that one is the main event of a big card in the United States, in Texas. I can't believe that I've already announced this. I mean, the fight is next week. Could we not just wait like 2 weeks before announcing this card? It's in November. We have 4 months to promote it. But I get it. The reason why they did it now, they want to announce the card this week. They've got a kickoff press conference on Friday in New York City during the fight week for Berlanga Shiraz. Everyone's going to be in town for it, so that's why they're going to do the press conference on Friday. I'll watch it. I am interested in anything goes about Benavidez and Yarde. They could get some smack talk. I bet that Mason and Noakes will be respectful. I bet that Bam and Puma will be respectful. I can tell you right now, Haney and Norman are going to go at it, and it's going to be fun. That's going to be fun. But Bam and Puma is a fantastic fight. That is the best fight in the division by a mile. That's such a good fight. Haney Norman is also the best fight in the division. Mason Noakes is not the best fight in the division, but it's a great fight. These are all world title fights. No ifs, buts about it. Some of them unified. 4 fights as of right now. I am curious if more will get added. We used to have like 7 of these big fights on a card, but I think that now that Turkey is doing more events, he's only going to do about 4 or 5, which is traditional for boxing anyway. So I'm not going to complain if this is the whole card. It's tremendous. And yeah, November 22nd, we are going to have another huge event down in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Moving on from that, let's talk about what happened this weekend. Jack Catterall Harlem Eubank. Really, really bad fight. Yeah, it was. I think that it was a little bit closer. I had it 58-50, or actually I should say 68-66, because it was the round 7 was when it stopped at 10-10. That round was. So I had Jack Catterall winning, but I did give Eubank 2 of the rounds. It was really just not much going on. And I mean, Catterall is definitely a gifted boxer, but he really needs to get his output up. I mean, it is ridiculous, and that's why he just sat on his hands in the Barboza fight, and he was kind of doing the same thing here, where he was clearly the better boxer than Eubank, but Eubank had won 1 or 2 of the rounds because Eubank was landing bigger shots, and you want to know why? Because he was throwing more. Catterall was barely throwing a shot. He would throw like 10 punches around. The output is ridiculously low, and I'm somebody who likes Jack Catterall, but it feels almost like he's getting more and more boring with each fight. I mean, if we remember the Josh Taylor fight, the rematch, that was a lot of fun. The Jorge Linares fight before that, I thought that Catterall beat him up pretty good. Then you get to the Regis Prograis fight, which was also very, very boring, outside of Prograis getting some knockdowns. Then you go to the Barboza fight, another really boring one. And then you get to this fight, and it's boring yet again. Honestly, I think that everyone was agreeing that when the fight got stopped, it was like, okay, thank God. We only had to watch 6 rounds of this instead of 12 because nobody was getting a knockout. It was really, really bad. That cut on Eubank was actually the one that stopped it. He did have a cut over the eye. Catterall's was way bigger, and the commentary team was confused. It was like, why is Eubank stopping it and not Catterall? Well, Catterall's cut was massive, but it wasn't blocking his vision at all. His eye was, you could see, it was way above his eye. His eye was totally visible. He could see everything. Eubanks, if you looked at him, his cut was kind of drooping over his eye a bit. So I don't know if he was passing the vision test as well. Now, I don't think that means that Catterall's cut shouldn't have stopped it, regardless of vision. He had a huge cut on his eyebrow, and the fight needed to be stopped, and thankfully it was. It was really wasn't a great performance from either. I thought Eubank did okay in there, to come up and level and be competitive. I thought that Catterall wasn't doing anything bad. He just wasn't doing anything good either. And a bit of a just kind of felt like the fight never happened because it never really got started. And heck, we may have been saying that after 12 rounds too. As for what's next, I mean, when asked about a rematch, Eddie said, no, I don't really want to do that. And not because of the reason, none of us want to watch that again. That's the main reason for me. But he says he wants to move on to world titles. And look, it's no secret, Lewis Crocker and Paddy Donovan are likely to rematch for the vacant IBF 147-pound title. And it seems like Catterall's going to stay at welterweight, and he is going to move ahead and try and fight the winner of that, which I have no objections to. That's forcing Catterall to get into a real fun fight because Crocker and Donovan are both going to make it exciting. I can't wait for that rematch. We know Donovan is gonna beat Crocker again, and then it'll be Donovan versus Catterall for the world title, I'm guessing, should that happen. We'll see what ends up being the course. As for Eubank, I would like to say now that he's punched his ticket to the big leagues, but knowing him and knowing his promoters, I'm guessing he's going to be in another kind of pointless fight. If they can get somebody around the level of Tyrone McKenna like the last fight, I won't be complaining. But all of his fights before that have been very, very pointless against no-names. So we'll see what they do with him next. Hopefully he gets another opportunity. But I don't know. Welterweight is an interesting division domestically. So we'll see there. Honestly, Harlem Eubank versus Kona Walker. I feel like those are kind of the same levels. I wouldn't mind seeing that one. As for that undercard, Joe Cordina came back against Jarrett Gonzalez. Another performance where he didn't do anything wrong. He just wasn't extraordinary. Dominated the fight, won almost every round. I thought they'd looked really solid again. Just didn't stop him. Didn't do anything crazy. He seemed to have gotten hurt for a second there in one of I think it was the fifth round. But outside of that, it's hard to find any round to give Gonzalez. I thought that Cordina had a nice display. You also had Aqib Fiaz versus Alex Murphy, which was a very fun fight. Murphy coming two fights, two losses in a row against Aqib Fiaz and Khalil Majid before this, but both very competitive, very exciting fights. So he's definitely, made his name and is hopefully a mainstay on these TV cards because he's really fun, and I hope that he can get another fight. Really impressive hair gel. It stayed through all 10 rounds, but I did think that Fiaz had edged enough in the last few rounds to get the victory. I had it 96-94. I'd be okay with 95-95. I'd maybe even be okay with 96-94 Murphy. Anything outside of that, I'm not sure. It was a really, really close fight, but it was an enjoyable one. Pat Brown, a first-round knockout this time over a step-up opponent, Lewis Oakford. I mean, I really don't want to move him too far, but he's already knocking down domestic, like English title level opponents. I mean, like, is it not kind of ready to get him up there? I saw somebody saying that he could get in there with Jameson or Corliss next. Obviously, Jameson just fought Alois for the Commonwealth. Corliss fought Vidal and Hedges for the English title. So, I mean, like, he's getting to that level. And honestly, by the end of the year, or by 2026, I expect to see him in those kind of title fights, in those 10-rounders. He's just really proven to be the good investment that Matchroom wanted to make with him, and he's looked really solid as a pro so far. Speaking of pro debut, or pro prospect, Leo Atang had his debut, and he looked very, very good. Did exactly what he needed to. He's this new heavyweight prospect. They're calling him the next AJ. You need to come out there against this journeyman and get a first-round knockout, and that is exactly what he did. He stepped on him. He showed his power. That is the exact way to make a heavyweight pro debut. Not like Delicious Ori did, and obviously he retired after that. This is exactly what we needed, and I'm glad that he got that stoppage and looked phenomenal doing it. Hopefully they get him out really, really soon. Same with Pat Brown, because when guys get first round stoppages, there's no reason to sit on their hands. We don't know why, but the next event is supposed to be in Newcastle on August 9th. I think Pat McCormack is headlining it. No announcement yet, so I'm questionable if it's still happening, as it's just over a month away. But I think Matchroom is probably during the Bam Kafu fight week. I'm guessing they're going to announce a whole new schedule. They just on their rebrand, so I'm assuming that they're going to roll out way more events for the next 3 months. And that will definitely be the first one in that case. But get Leo Tang on that card. Honestly, he looked really good. Sky Nicholson had her return. First fight at super bantamweight, second round stoppage. It's only her second stoppage in her career, so it looks like she is a little bit stronger. This new weight class is throwing more combinations, is more aggressive. She looked really, really good, and it looks like she's actually made good improvements from the Tiara Brown fight. If she goes back up to featherweight, throw her right back into the rematch. It was a close fight. If not, okay, get her in with Ellie Scottney or someone like that. They say that they want to do one more fight with her this year and then move on to world titles after that, which I'm okay with that, but I honestly think that she could be ready to hop right in. I still think that she's top 15 pound-for-pound women's fighter. Other than that, you had William Crawla suffer his first defeat as a pro. He got stopped by Fraser Wilkinson. It was a close fight to start, and then Wilkinson just it was interesting. This was a step up, and Wilkinson just kind of put his stuff together and really had a phenomenal performance. And round by round, was just getting more and more dominance over Crawla. And I think you dropped him in round 5 and then stopped him in round 6. So really solid performance. I did see a lot of people kind of bashing Crawla because they were hyping him up a little bit too much. I never thought he was going to be this next big thing, but I did think that he was really fun to watch. I still do think that he will be, but I mean, in terms of him being the Manchester Gennady Golovkin, that was never going to happen. But we can still have him around, and look, the fight was still decent enough. But I hope Wilkinson gets another good opportunity off of this, because it was a good performance. You also had Alfie Middlemiss in there, who obviously called for a signing from Eddie Hearn. That's not going to happen because he has no power. And really not as very fun to watch. But then you also had Nao Brown, who had a fourth round stoppage, and he was the Watchman prospect on the show. He's pretty good, but he's 16-0 now, so it's really time to get a move on. He shouldn't be fighting journeyman in 6-rounders after having 16 fights. He should move on to 8, 10-rounders at that point. But anyways, that was that card. We also had 2 PFL cards. You had the one in Brussels in Belgium. which was a really fun card. Patrick Habaroa had a great head kick KO in the main event over Danny Roberts. Also on that card, you had the bantamweight tournament where who was it? I think that it was yes, Gustavo Oliveira had a phenomenal spinning elbow KO. That was crazy. And I think that he's meant to be fighting Mahio Campanella. Campanella. I think that's the next fight. And then it'll be John Saplowski versus Dean Garnett in the tournament as well. So that was a lot of fun. You had a lot of really fun fights on that card, I thought. Taylor Lapilus had a decent win. Gaetano Perello had a first round submission in a Belgian versus Belgian fight. And then they got into a scruffle afterwards. That was crazy. Boris Atangana, huge performance. He was a big favorite with the crowd, and really made a very big statement saying, like, look, I'm here. Give me anybody. I'll fight middleweight, like heavyweight. Very, very fun. You had just a lot of really, really solid fights on that card. Chiquina Pedro upsetting Hamzat Abayev. Ibrahim Ibrahimov with the 30-27 win. It was a really solid card. It had a lot of fights. It was like 15, 16 fights. Probably a little bit too much, but that's okay. Their next card is Nantes for PFL Europe at September 26th, I want to say, with Lazy King. And I'd never really seen him talk before. Just not familiar with him. Never seen him fight either, but they interviewed him, and he was a very, very funny personality, so I like him. I'm looking forward to his fight. They also had their second installment of the MENA season for this year. Omar El Delfraoui had a first-round submission in the main event. You had some tournament fights on there as well. I can't remember who it was. I think it was Islam Yusuf who had the second round big KO that everyone was talking about. Crazy. So I did want to shout him out for having an absolutely insane knockout. I think that's the right guy. I can't remember who was who, but you had some good fights on that card. It was like the first 4 fights were all second round finishes. It was nuts, and most of the fights on the card didn't go the distance. I also want to talk about Hatan Al Saif. She's 5-0 as an amateur now. All of her fights have been on PFL MENA cards. She's on every card. When are they going to move her into being a professional fighter? It's just really weird to me how she's on all these pro cards and is always super high up on the card and has a huge crowd there every time, and she's just an amateur just blowing through everyone. Let's just go professional. I don't get it. But that's all the events from this weekend. Now let's hop into some more news. Bivol Beterbiev 3. This is interesting. So obviously we have this big November card. Apparently that was meant to be the trilogy. This November 22nd card was meant to be headlined by Dmitry Bivol, Artur Beterbiev 3. And then both of them asked Turkey if they could have the event in Russia with different organizers. And Turkey gave them his blessing, said, yeah, sure, go for it. So this means it will not be under him. It will not be a Ring Magazine, won't be a Riyadh season, it won't be a TKO event. The front runner we think is IBA, as they're the ones who said a few months ago that they would like to host a trilogy in Moscow in a 78,000 seat stadium. Sign me up for that. I love big stadium fights. I always thought, these are two Russians fighting for the undisputed championship. That doesn't happen all that often. They really should have one of the fights in Russia, and I'm glad that's going to be the case, even though it's not for undisputed anymore. But it's going to be in early 2026. This is the reason for the delay. Beterbiev says that Bivol was the one who delayed the fight, saying that at first he was ready to have the fight in August, September, and then Bivol said, no, let's do it a little bit later, and then Turkey had the November date, and then now Bivol's pushing it back then, and he has no idea when it is. So I think that was just a lot of talk about, man, this got delayed, everyone was upset, and then, Beterbiev just wanted to come on and say, hey, not my fault, it's his fault. Which I don't blame him for doing that. I do have a little bit of worry. This doesn't sound like it's finalized. I don't know if I trust the IBA as a promotion to get this one done. This is a fight that took forever to make, and you needed Turkey and them to do it. So I don't know if I trust that somebody else can just pick up where they left off and make a huge fight like this, and especially doing one in a country that doesn't often have huge boxing. I know boxing is pretty big in Russia, but they don't have any world title fights really. So to pull off a stadium fight, it's not something that you do all the time there, like you do in Saudi Arabia. So it's a tough task to do, and we'll just see. I'm hopeful that they can make this fight and have it soon, because I think it sounds like a great idea. I love the trilogy, but we'll see, man. We'll see. I know that Bivol has definitely been having a little bit of a tough time with the public. Obviously, a lot of people think that he kind of ducked Benavidez in favor of a Beterbiev trilogy. Now, I don't know if I want to say he ducked Benavidez, but when you go to this and him seemingly delaying the fight, it is a little bit like, okay, like you're making some moves here that kind of hurt in your public favor. But yeah, so that's where we're at right now. The trilogy won't be under Riyadh season. It'll be in Russia, most likely under the IBA, the IBA Pro events, whatever, in early 2026. And yeah, just hope we can make that happen. As for the UFC White House events, both Conor McGregor and Jon Jones won in. McGregor and Dana White posted their DMs saying like, "Oh yeah, they want to have that happen." McGregor wants to fight Michael Chandler again. We'll see if that it will ever happen. And then Jon Jones says, "Oh, fighting at the White House, huh?" And then he, says just re-entered the testing pool, seemingly saying, "Yeah." He even said like, "Oh, that lasted long. I'm coming back." It feels good to be the hunter again and not the hunted. And I'm just like, I really don't know what's going on with this situation. Now listen, I said when Jon Jones retired, do I think Jon Jones competes in the UFC again? Yes, I do. I've always thought that he was going to come back, kind of similar to Tyson Fury. And we know Tyson Fury's coming back as well. I knew that retirement would not last, but I thought that it would last longer than 13 days. And when we do have this event, I personally am just kind of like, I don't really need to see Jon Jones fight again. I really don't. I don't have a ton of interest in seeing him come again and fight Tom Aspinall. Well, I shouldn't say that. I do have interest in him coming back maybe, but like, I kind of want to wait a while. Like, I've just been so done with Jon Jones recently. I don't want to see the next title fight be him and Aspinall. Aspinall needs to fight this fall, and Jon Jones is not going to let that happen. Or with Jon Jones, that's not going to happen. So have him fight Cyril Gane. Have him fight whoever. It doesn't matter. I'm fight Volkov. I don't know. But I'm really not in the mood to see Jon Jones, Tom Aspinall right now. We do it at the White House. Jon Jones comes back. He earns a title fight. Whatever. He doesn't even need to earn one. He can walk right into him. But if he's serious about it, then sure. But I don't trust that he's serious about this at all. It's ridiculous. I think that people are kind of over exaggerating with how crazy this White House card is going to be. It's not going to be UFC 300. People think it's going to be bigger than that. I'm telling you right now, it's going to be a pay-per-view. It'll have a title fight, maybe even two. It'll be a big card, but I doubt that it's going to have McGregor and Jon Jones on the same card. It's like, nah, that's not going to happen, but hopefully they do get something crazy for the main event. Jake Paul wants Badou Jack next. That's what he's saying they're targeting. Nikisa Badarian said today on the Ariel Helwani show that they're planning to do a return in November, December time. As for opponent, they're not sure what they're going to do with that yet. Jake wants Badou Jack. Not sure if that's going to happen with him obviously being ordered to fight Noel Mikhailian again. We'll see if it's a world title fight, but likely not. So I have no idea who they're going to do that against, but we got time to find that out. As for his ranking, we're hearing that the WBA is going to review the ranking of him after the backlash. And listen, I'm not somebody who's super mad about the ranking. Just because you look at the rankings, there's a lot of guys in there that shouldn't be ranked in the top 15 of the world. A lot. Vidal Riley is not ranked by the WBA. But then Jake Paul and other guys who are fighting in 6-rounders against journeymen are. It doesn't make any sense. The rankings are BS anyways. It just means that you're eligible for a world title shot in that sanction, which Vidal is not eligible, I guess, and Jake Paul is, which is silly in that regard, but I don't know. We'll see if they even do anything about it, but they do have a convention this month, and it is on the books to discuss and potentially revoke that ranking. So we'll see what happens. Ricky Hatton versus Issa Al-Da has been announced for December 2nd in Dubai. Da is also like 46. Hatton is 47. Actually, a little bit younger than I thought he was. But as far as this fight is concerned, I don't understand what the point of it is. It seems like it's professional. In fact, in the poster, it has the WBC youth title, which is just hilarious. I don't know. Like this has to be like a joke. Like, how do they think, like, oh, we can put a title on this? It's Ricky Hatton. How are you going to put a youth title? Out of any titles you could have chosen, you chose the youth one? Come on. So I guess it's professional. He's announcing it like 5 months ahead of time, so I guess he's going to take training seriously. We'll see how it goes. It's just so out of nowhere. I don't really get the point of it, but sure, I'll watch it. Maybe it's fun. Just really, really odd. Inoue is going to have his next fight announcement on Thursday, or at least some kind of announcement. I was thinking about this, like, oh wait, yeah, Mirjan Akhmadaliev. That fight hasn't been announced yet. It's supposed to happen in like 2.5 months. I think September 14th is the date, so looks like that'll be announced on Thursday for the undisputed super bantamweight titles in Tokyo. Best fight in the division, and yeah, after that, once Inoue gets past him, it's likely going to be against Alan Picasso in December, who has a fight against Kosuke Kameda coming up July 19th. So both have fights they need to get through, and then we'll see that one. And then it should be all steam ahead for Inoue Nakatani next year. I'm really just hoping that they can both get wins the next couple of fights. We can see that because it's a super fight and we need it so bad. Sergey Bohachuk is apparently going to return on the Canelo Crawford undercard. Glad that he's going to get recognition on there. He's a really, really fun fighter and he deserves that. Against who is the question? I was thinking, let's do Virgil Ortiz rematch. Let's do Bakram Murtazaliev. Some really heavy hitters, some great fights, top 5 fights at 154. Apparently, it's going to be the Brandon Adams rematch, most likely, which is whatever. Brandon Adams is coming off a loss against Andreas Katsarakis. Bohachuk would obviously be a decent favorite over Adams. This is his only stoppage loss. Only one of 2 losses on Bohachuk's record comes to Adams, and I'm sure in the rematch he'd be able to beat him this time. So I won't be super mad if this gets announced, but that fight belongs much more as the main event to a 360 promotions card on UFC Fight Pass than it does to a Netflix Stadium undercard fight on the biggest fight of the decade. That's just, I don't know. I don't really need to see Bohachuk Adams too. And if any of the fights we could have on that card, I need to see big ones, not if I just like, okay, that's fine. No. I'd rather see him fight Murtazaliev or Ortiz or Madrimov, somebody like that on that card. Moving on from there, Tony Ferguson has announced he has a boxing match August 30th, which is the same date we're hearing from Misfits Boxing 22. A card that has been delayed a ton, or not delayed, but the announcement's been delayed. And if you go onto the Zone Twitter and look at one of their posts, all the captions are Misfits fans saying, with this new logo they made, saying the delay for the Zone, which is pretty funny. But I do know this is a problem that DAZN has with Misfits. They don't do it with other promotions, which is weird, but Misfits always say, like, yeah, we're ready. Like, we have the next event. It's ready to be announced. But DAZN is not letting us announce it. And we're having to wait. We haven't been given the green light yet. And they always wait until like a month before, and then Misfits doesn't have enough time to properly promote. Part of me wonders, because what Misfits will do is, or what DAZN will do, is you'll have an event announced, and then DAZN won't actually post about it until like weeks later, even though everybody knows it's going to be on DAZN. They did that today. MVP announced an event with Yankiel Rivera versus Angelino Cordova like a month ago. And it was just today announced by DAZN. They didn't post it about it before. So maybe that's what it is that they've got their own schedule, but most of the promotions just say, okay, yeah, y'all can announce it then. We're going to post it now. And I don't know if that's just other promotions not caring and Misfits caring, or if it's that DAZN allows them to, but Misfits are like, no, you have to wait until we give the green light. It's stupid. But anyways, I think it's very likely Tony Ferguson fights on this Misfits event. No coincidence they're on the same day. They're saying it's a big fight that nobody's guessed yet. It's going to be in the USA. I don't know who Tony Ferguson's fighting. Probably one of their guys. Maybe they did post about Saul Poppy today. I guess that's possible. That would make sense. I don't think it's KSI, although that would make a lot of sense, and I wouldn't be mad against it. It'd just be funny with KSI talking about Jake Paul fighting former MMA fighters, and he's fighting the guy who's on like an 8-fight losing streak or something like that. So we'll see who it ends up being against, but it looks like Tony Ferguson will be fighting on Misfits on August 30th. That's what it looks like. Regis Prograis is going to be returning on the Oscar Duarte Kenneth Sims Jr. undercard. That's what they're saying. Almost a year out of the ring from the Jack Catterall fight. He was meant to fight Oscar Duarte, and now he's on the undercard. I guess he signed with Golden Boy. I don't know who he'd be fighting. Probably a nobody, just to get back in the win column. But I don't know. He's another fighter where it's like, yo, it's just kind of time to retire, man. It is. Maybe if he can get one more decent payday against somebody like Oscar Duarte, where he'll be the main event on a big card, and they can just call it wraps after that. It'll be cool, but I think it's probably time to call it quits. Lester Martinez is out of the Pro Box TV main event on Saturday. Really, really disappointing. This is, I think, the second time he's been pulled out just based off of migraines, which is not a good sign. having headaches like that as a boxer, especially as young as he is shows you may be getting towards the time where you may have to hang them up. They're saying they're going to get him neurological tests to make sure everything's okay because this is a recurring issue now. He has so many fights pulled out because of multiple illnesses, injuries, whatever, most of them being migraines. And it's just really annoying because he's such a great fighter and his career is just being stagnated because he's not being able to get the fights in because he's not healthy. And when you have that, it's just, I don't know, man. I did see some people are saying, oh, coincidence, right? When Christian and Billy fight starts getting discussed. And maybe that does play into it, where he could have pulled through and he's like, nah, well, I'm going to get that big fight anyways and don't want to risk losing to Pierre Dubombe. Sucks for Dubombe. The main event will now be Vlad Hernandez versus Francisco Varane, which is still a really nice fight. It's still a really good card on Saturday. Did just lose a really good main event, and hopefully Martinez is all good and can come back out soon, but I don't know, man. The migraines are very worrying, and we may never get to see him fight again, honestly, which would be a huge shame. Ring Magazine will be hosting a sparring club on July 11th this Friday. 2 of the fighters will be selected for the Canelo Alvarez-Terence Crawford undercard. So we know that Turkey has said, yeah, he wants young boxers to reach out to him, and he wants to put them on this card, which is pretty cool. It seems like they're going to be choosing 2 very young and up-and-coming and no-name fighters to be on this card, which is pretty sick. Put them on Netflix. I hope that it's not just all young fighters and we can still get some decent fights. Like if it ends up being Canelo Alvarez, Terence Crawford, co-main event, Sergey Boachuk versus Brandon Adams 2. Then the rest of the card is Mikey Talon versus Journeyman number 89 and New York City Brawlers fighting each other. It'd be like, yo, what, at Allegiant Stadium on Netflix is what we're doing? No, I hope that we can get those on the prelims, some nice fights there, but I do want the main card to be really solid fights. But this is pretty cool. This is really cool that they're supporting grassroots boxing like this and developing young stars. Don Davis tweeted he wants in on a UFC White House event. Very funny, just tweeting at Donald Trump, oh my gosh, MMA at the White House is a great idea. Here are the fights we could do on it. Let's do PFL in the afternoon and UFC in the evening. It's like, dude, like, you are not invited. Like, it's so funny. It's like, dude, we need to take this guy's phone away. He's always tweeting the craziest stuff. And he tweeted, he had like 4 PFL super fights on there. It was like Francis Ngannou versus Vladimir Nemkov. And then it's like Dakota Ditcheva versus Liz Carmouche. Paul Hughes versus Usman Nurmagomedov. By the way, he called him a duck with a little rubber ducky this weekend at PFL Brussels. That was pretty funny. I don't know why that fight's being stalled, but that needs to happen. The first fight was the best fight in PFL history. We need to do the rematch. It's the biggest fight they can make right now. But anyways, that fight was on the card, and then he also had Dennis Goltsov versus Renan Ferreira. Dude, those are 4 great fights. Why don't you just make them now? Why do you need to wait a year? Like, he's literally saying that. Yeah, I mean, obviously, this wasn't a very serious tweet, but why do we need to wait a year to see Hughes versus Usman again? Do that now. Just really frustrating, and I don't know. Hopefully, these are fights that PFL has in the pipeline, but yeah, you're not getting on the White House card, man. Yokasta Valle versus Rocio Gaspar has been announced for July 18th in Costa Rica for the WBC minimum weight title, and this will be under Yoka's new promotion company. Really interesting that she's broken away from Golden Boy, started her own promotion, and is doing her own event in Costa Rica of defending her title. Very, very interesting. Wish her well. Curious how it goes, but yeah, just a really odd move that she would separate from them and do her own thing. But who knows? We'll see. And then lastly, Pablo Valdez has been added to the Bam Kafu card on July 19th. I don't know if Eddie Hearn has signed him. I don't think he has, but he just puts him on like every couple of months. He'll put him on a U.S. show because he is a fun character and he brings in a lot of fans and stuff. This is in Texas. Don't know how strong of a contingent he'll have there, but when he fights in Orlando or New York, he gets a lot of people there. I'm sure he'll be in attendance on Saturday for Edgar Berlanga's fight as they're good buddies. But yeah, he's an interesting guy, and he was obviously meant to be on this Hitchens Kambosos card a few weeks ago, and that didn't happen. So maybe it's just the matchroom felt that they owed him one and needed to get him back on. But that card is looking really nice with Bam versus Kafu, Pacheco versus McCumbee, and then also Ammo versus Oliha. It's going to be a good night of boxing. That's all I've got for today. We're going to do another episode Thursday, Friday, where we'll talk about Katie Taylor, Amanda Serrano 3. We'll talk about Edgar Berlanga, Hamza Shiraz. We'll talk about Shakur Stevenson, William Zepeda. A ton of amazing fights this weekend. 2 huge boxing events in New York City. It's actually crazy. We have 2 genuine super cards this week in the same city, one day apart. It's a great time to be a boxing fan. You've also got UFC Nashville. You've got BKFC back in at the Hard Rock, and they're having a big press conference on Thursday with more announcements to come. You're also going to have Pro Box TV on Saturday, like I mentioned. It's going to be a really, really nice weekend of boxing and UFC and BKFC and combat sports in general. Thank you so much for listening, and peace out.